Hello and welcome to SBI Presents India Revival Mission, co-powered by LIC and PNB. As we tread an continuously evolving scenario of COVID-19 in India and worldwide, we are now realizing the important impact it has had on industry and economy. Companies have had to rework their business models, they've had to adapt to new working cultures, and they're living a new normal. Normal, it certainly isn't, and it is very critical to implement new strategies and policies to resurrect our economies. An ongoing thought leadership program by the Times Network India Revival Mission, which is fronted on their channels ET Now, Times Now World and Mirror Now, is conducting a series of discourses and deliberations with global visionaries, corporate leaders, influencers and policymakers to discuss and deliberate and get insights on the resurgence of the Indian economy. Well, today, since I'm here, we're focusing down on the automotive sector. Now, when we think of cars, we often think of everything on wheels because that's what we instantly connect with. But there are many cogs that go into this industry, building it from behind the scenes. Basf is one such large giant behind the scenes. They have 59 billion euro in sales. They employ 110,000 people worldwide. They filed 950 patents last year alone and spent 2 billion euro on R&D. This creation center that we sit in was constructed by them in 2019 to service the Indian automotive industry, and it was an exciting time then, but unfortunately 2020 saw the industry come to a grinding halt, and we'll be talking on that and a lot more about the future and the resurgence of the Indian economy. But before that, I'd like to introduce you to our eminent panel today. We have with us Mr. Anand Sivabalasubramaniam, MD Chemtail, India Private Limited, Mr. Brieux, Boisedequin, VP Automotive Cluster and Materials, Basf South Asia, and we have with us Mr. Sujan Saha, CEO Automotive Coating Solutions, Basf South Asia. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us here today. And what a difficult time to have started this creation center. I'm sure it was with great excitement in 2019, but 2020 must have been very difficult because you just started this up. And I throw it open to you to tell us about all the challenges that you've been facing.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Renuka. And you're absolutely right. 2020 was unplanned and unprecedented. However, if we take a little bit of a step back and we look at the history of BASF in India, we have been here for more than 130 years. We have seen many cycles, economic cycles, the ups and the downs in India, and we always seem to come out stronger out of every crisis. And I think one of the reasons why we are strong as a business in India is, of course, due to the resilience of our team, but also with the attractiveness of our portfolio. And in fact, last year, we just opened this creation center when the lockdown hit us. We were able to pivot it and to utilize our design competency to actually come up with mask and face shield the solutions together with our customers. And that really shows how we can quickly react to the market environment.
So when you sometimes think about a coating industry, many times we think about the color on the car body that we see on the road, but actually it comprises of 5 different layers. And the value chain of the 5 different layers that their manufacturing technologies are having a lot of complexities on the ground when we take in the grounds of supporting the customers. So 2020, like all of the industry, was also a very difficult year from the coating point of view to support the manufacturing organizations. And as BASF has the approach of one company with the deep understanding of all the value chains of the automotive industry, be it from the modular to the aftermarket, so we could really have a very good approach by putting the customer at the center and collaborate more and more with the customers. But Brieux, if I just mention 2 of the great learnings out of 2020, what we had, actually as an organization or an individual, when you are in a crisis, which you don't know much, which was in the case of COVID, you don't need to really delay implementing your decisions. And the second learning is just a strengthening belief of BASF that if you put your customer at the center, if you follow your core principle, you don't fail even at the crisis time.
I think if I look at the trend or the innovation that kind of happened during this period, I would say one of the things that really stands out for me is that sustainability is no more just an S word. it's become part of the working conversation with our customers. And you see that happening time and time again, where customers want to engage in the sustainability conversations. And that's quite exciting. This is while it is a challenging time, but it also opens up opportunities in different avenues of sustainability and innovation, which clearly is an area which BASF has been working over the decades.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because so many of us during this lockdown saw a cleaner environment. And I think that's influenced a lot of minds in knowing that how much pollution actually we cause by industry and automation and automotive, etc. And I think, have you seen that change in industry? Are people now asking for more solutions? Having seen the environment greener, has that been a learning from this situation?
I think that there has been clearly that nudge that's actually happening very clearly from the customer side. There is a much more conscious discussion to talk about the environment and how they're contributing to it. I think Brieux can really kind of out of experience talk about some of the other areas.
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree with you. And I've been in India now for 3 years. And I think the first time I saw a real blue sky in Mumbai was last year. I really enjoyed to see the nature coming back. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who enjoyed this. So, the trends that we had already anticipated before the crisis, I think they were just accelerated by the crisis. When it comes to mobility, we used to talk about this ACES trend, right? The automated car, autonomous car, the connected vehicles, the electrified vehicles, and the shared mobility. Shared mobility maybe has been put aside for a while because of all the concerns of riding vehicles together, but everything else has been accelerated, and especially, I think, when it comes to electrification. And the E can also stand for environment. And the S also stands for safety. Again, the lockdown really put an emphasis on safety for us and for everyone else. And in that context, companies like BASF that has deep expertise in materials and in design can really help the car manufacturers to achieve the next level of safety, the next level of environmental friendly products.
It's interesting that you talk about that because, being the number 2 catalyst supplier, BS6, which was all about the environment and going greener, came bang smack in the middle of the lockdown, just as the lockdown happened. Was that difficult? I mean, especially supply chain, getting things together, there must have been a process that was completely halted. So how difficult was that time?
Yeah, I'm truly impressed with this transition to BS6 in India. First of all, I think it's a great example of collaboration between so many players in the ecosystem. You have the oil refineries and the oil distribution companies that got ready with their fuel on time. Then you have car manufacturers and tier and chemical companies like BASF that worked on the solutions, qualified the technology, and got ready to supply as of April last year. So all of that was well executed, well planned, under such a short time frame. I remember in Europe, we took almost 10 years to move to Euro 6 norms. Here in India, we did it within 3 to 4 years. And I think it's a tremendous success. A lot of learning have come out of this, and we can apply then this learning to the next wave of emission norms that are coming up in 2022. And in fact, we're already preparing. So we're expanding our capacity further. We are bringing additional technologies into India. We are working with our customers to qualify. So all of that we have experienced last year, we are ready to replicate that to become even faster and better going forward.
While local manufacturing and manufacturing closer to the consumption is very critical, I think one very, very critical step is also localization of the value chain, the supply value chain. Yeah. And I think that there has been a lot of experience over the years with BASF having a structured process to work with suppliers. And I must say that has really come to the fore during these times when we have actually worked with suppliers on quality management, environment, health and safety norms. That's really helped during this period. And we have a very nice example again during the pandemic where we were able to, we call it the story of the 5,000 to 50. That means something that we were buying 5,000 kilometers away, we started getting it 50 kilometers away. So that means that was so much localized that we were able to cater to the requirements of our raw material input. So I thought that was an important piece that I
That's
wanted
interesting. We'll come to the trends back because you've made an interesting point there. So how much was the shift to actually, because he said you were importing hazardous chemicals, etc., but how much was that shift really that you made as a company to buying even raw materials in India as, you know, as BASF as a total? Do you think that there was a large shift to raw materials from India and sourcing them what you never imagined you would source from this country earlier?
Yes, so I wouldn't be able to put a specific number to it, but this has been accelerating over the years, the last few years. And I would say while it's kind of this period allowed it to happen in a much more congenial environment where everybody was pulling in the same direction that we need to get sources locally. And I'm sure there are many, many examples in every business where there's a lot of localization that's happened, because supply reliability, I think, became one of the very, very important factors when people take a buying decision. And I think that led to a lot of localization also that happened.
Welcome back to SBI Presents India Revival Mission, co-powered by LIC and PNB. There's been a strong push towards EV as well, and you know, you do a lot of component and chemicals for the EV race as well. Do you think that is still a while away in India, or do you see a strong push from manufacturers to be again developing locally? I know when I talk to manufacturers, they're like, you know, battery systems need to be developed here. So what is the involvement of BASF? How far developed along are you? What are the new technologies we can hope to see, you know, being sourced from India?
I think this is a very hot topic that's in discussion, and I must say, I think while we look at the EV space, and definitely that's a very strong space of growth for the future, one of the critical elements will be the infrastructural push for this to really accelerate. And that means when I talk about charging stations, the infrastructure that's needed, because I think if you look at stats today, it's about 600 charging stations, and many of which are still in the metros. And I think that is going to be a very, very important piece to really get this penetration of EVs. The government has come up with quite a few initiatives with FAME 2, which is really supporting the total cost of ownership through incentivization, and you see that clearly the adoption rate in two-wheelers and with, again, government initiatives. I think we have the National Institute for Mobility and Battery Storage. I think that they're working on localization, and that's where the contribution of BASF also plays a very important role in terms of the battery materials. And Brieux, would you want to build on the battery materials?
Yeah, thanks, Anand. I think all the elements are here in the market for e-mobility to take off, and take off in a big way. And I fully agree with what Anand has said. You know, we will see this coming in segment by segment, probably two-wheeler, then three-wheeler, electric buses, and then later on passenger vehicles. When you look at the architecture of an electric vehicle, the core component of it is the battery. That's where the performance of the vehicle will come from. That's where the cost and the safety will be addressed. I think overall the requirements are very similar to what we have seen outside India. It's all about performance, cost, and safety. The only difference that I see here is this high temperature requirement. You know, India being a warm country, how do you ensure really good safety and performance at elevated temperature? And here we are happy to work with our partners on innovating further on cathode materials, making our products safer to use in the Indian context.
How has the resurgence really been? I mean, are we back on track, do you think, in India? Is the economy really picking up? Do you see manufacturers going back to normal? What have you seen from the supplier side?
Post-COVID, we did see a slow pickup, because I think we did see slowly the retail demand picking up. And what we experience in our industry is clearly in the last few months, there has been a ramp up in demand across our industry segments for the automotive sector. And I think the challenges currently now pertain more to ensuring supply stability, supply reliability. I think these are the important things that really come to the fore. But really there is a sizable ramp up, very close to now pre-COVID levels, one could say.
Yeah, and our business has been doing quite well. Even in 2020, we were able to grow our volume and our sales in India despite the car production going down by 24-25%. The first quarter of this year, January to March quarter, has been extremely good. We have visibility at least until June, where our pipeline of order is also quite good.
Vis-a-vis policy and strategy in India from the government, are there any changes you would like to see to kind of stabilize or get the economy back on track and have the resurgence and a future plan?
I would say a couple of comments and wishes that I would have on behalf of BASF. First is to promote innovation. Innovation in India. Too often we see the car industry relying on the headquarters and the research centers in the home country of those car manufacturers. And it would be great to bring this innovation and design capability in India to really speed up and elevate the capability of the industry here. That's number one. Number two, I would love to see more car manufacturers being welcomed into India. The more car manufacturers we would have, I think the more competition and the more innovation we would have and the more choice for the end consumer. And number three, something on the taxation regime. I still see an opportunity here to optimize taxation in order to make cars more affordable so that more people have access to personal mobility, and those who have an affordability for mid-range or upper range vehicle, that they can really enjoy a high performance and highly innovative vehicle. So there, something to do on taxation system would also be a wish from us.
That's great. So seems like Make in India and collaboration are the two things that I've heard coming out of this discussion. So those are definitely some of the future trends. What do you think? I mean, if I were to tell you Indian automotive industry next 10 years, what is the Creation Center thinking about? What are the future trends? You guys have to tell us because you're creating them.
See, if I may start with, I will just add with one point also what Bruce said, what is the innovation requirement for the market to really look forward to the future. If you look at the consumer behavior of owning a car, that's actually getting shorter and shorter. So what we had back in 2009 and now 2020, it's even now less than 5 years. So that's very important that we innovate. And also there are various research which is saying that now more and more passengers are preferring to have their personal vehicle rather than the shared vehicles. Now, when you ask about the trends, we completely see that over the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a trend changes, whether you call it a regular trend or a disruptive trend, but it will be there. I think one of the trend will be the consumer preferences. The consumer preferences with the type and the innovations of the car would definitely be different for sure. Whether you talk about the model part of it, whether you talk about the design part of it, whether you talk about even a color point of view. In India, it is predominantly still the white, right? We see a little surge of gray and silver and blue, but it's still white. And I think India is the only country in the world where we see the white part is more than 50%. There will definitely be a shift on that. But apart from these, I think there will be also shift by the government point of view. As such, along with many other countries, India is still a pure solvent bond market. And we do not have at the moment a very stringent rule and regulations on the manufacturing point of view of VOC. So that will definitely come in the organization when government put more and more thought on this policy point of view.
So will the automotive industry remain a focus for BASF, and do you think that it will still remain the largest part of your business?
Let me respond to this in a way. I think if you look at the last 10 years of the Indian automotive industry, it might not have had the best of growth years. But then I would say that the Indian automotive industry has very clearly demonstrated speed, adaptability, and resilience in these last 10 years. I think that's really been demonstrated with, I say that because with the changes in emission norms, and as what Bruce said a little while earlier, the speed to which we were able to adapt to the emission norms and consumer preferences has really holds the Indian automotive industry in good stead for the future. And along with this comes the need and the requirement for sustainability and innovation. And I think that's where these are really sweet spots for BASF. And I think it continues to be a high interest for BASF as the automotive industry.
That's great. Brieux, closing comments from you on the future and the automotive industry.
India is becoming the third largest industry, car production country in Asia Pacific, the third largest already this year. And that at the level of car ownership per capita that is very low. So we do see a lot of potential in this market just to serve the local needs. I also personally see a lot of potential to serve export markets. Design will really make India an attractive location to produce for export. So from a market and business side perspective, we are extremely optimistic about the future of the automotive industry in India.
As you said, we all believe in the really great potential of the market in India to grow. And I would proudly like to comment here that we do have very deep understanding in the whole value chains in the automotive industry, whether they call it from OEM to modular to component to parts, even to aftermarket. Thereby, we would proudly likely to be present here with the whole value chains and would like to help the overall industry to grow in the next maybe 20-30 years.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's really been a pleasure talking to you, and we could go on, but unfortunately that's all we have time for today. Of course, the topics that emerged here: Make in India, that seems to be strong, collaboration is the way forward, and it is very optimistic for the Indian automotive industry.